we've been going full objection mode here lately, which is, and for the owners, managers, and trainers in the room, there are several ways to do an objections meeting. And one of them is probably the way most trainers like to do it, which is I'll get up, I'll overcome an objection with a rebuttal, I'll tell everybody to jot it down, and then we will take turns bringing pairs up. One is the client, one is the tech. The tech goes first, then that client becomes the tech and gets to pick the next person who comes up, and so on until you get through the entire room, if you get time to get through the entire room. But we are rebuttal perfectionists here. So you rarely get more than like 4 or 5 techs at the most, sometimes just 2. So another way to do it is, if anybody's trained in jiu-jitsu, when you go train in jiu-jitsu, at least the 2 gyms I've been to, the black belt or the highest rank in the room that's typically teaching the class will get in the center of the mat, and everybody kind of sits around and watches, and he will talk about the move that they're going to practice today. And then he'll get a volunteer, usually a higher belt, someone who knows what's going on, and they will very slowly practice that move together so you can see every movement and technique. And then they'll run through it in real time a couple times. And then they'll 1, 2, 3 break, and everybody will pair off into pairs, and they'll each try the move on each other slowly. And then the black belt and a couple higher ranks will walk around the room and give everyone pointers on their technique, right? And maybe that goes for 10, 15 minutes. And then they do it in real time. So now they try to go at each other and get the move done or take turns doing it. And then they come back together and do another move and start over. And then at the end of the session, they just do kind of open mat where they actually practice the moves in real time. Well, when I would sit through those at that time, I did all role playing of objections the old way, which was 2 people come up to the front and then we just take turns until we hopefully get around the room, but it never actually happens, especially in Lancaster where I had 80 techs before I left there. So using this jiu-jitsu method, and I don't know what else to call it, but that's what we're going to call it. So if you look in the Phoenix room there's probably a dozen people. So we'll get 6 pairs of people, and myself and a team this size is just going to be me. I'll even have our other managers doing some role play, but they'll take turns doing it by 2s. So everybody's role playing at the same time. And then I'll just walk the room and give everyone pointers. Now, if I see something several times by several different people, I'm going back up to the front and grabbing a volunteer, and I'm going to role play where that needed to be, say, perfected or improved upon, if that makes sense. So if owners, managers, trainers, give that a shot, give that type of training a shot, and see if you don't get more people actively role playing in your meeting. And then the best people doing it should be walking the room, giving advice, criticism, whatever you want to call it. So real quick, I wanted to go through a kind of newer rebuttal that I'm working on. Haven't rolled out on the Phoenix team yet, but it does seem like that the last few of these meetings, the Phoenix team has just had to listen to me regurgitate what we trained on the day before, which I think is good and it's fine because, for retention's sake, we just need to kind of repeat this stuff until it's part of us, as Tom Hopkins would say. But there's one that we don't have written on the board, which is a pain when you run across it. And that is boyfriend steps in, father-in-law steps in, neighbor, whatever it is, an outside person comes in, usually during or at the end of this process, and just decides to come in like this authority figure and preside over the event and tell the person, without actually ever directly talking to the technician or the salesperson, just whisper into the ear negative things or how he knows it can get done better or cheaper or whatever. And for this objection, I just label it nosy neighbor, because the nosy neighbor is something, there's nobody who's been in a truck for more than a few months who hasn't run into this nosy neighbor, nosy whomever. So the way to combat this is, here's the challenge. I've seen people who just fold. And when I say people, I mean myself included. When I first would run into this, I would just fold up and say, oh, well, yeah, you got to get other estimates. Leave, here's my card and blah, blah, blah. And call me if, or you get combative. And then I went through that phase where I would just go, hey, are you paying the bill here? No? All right, I'm going to go ahead and talk to her then. Thank you. Like, then I lose him. And then she's going to think about it and tell him what a prick I was and never call us back. Like, that's usually what happened. Sometimes I'd get the sale because I would shut that person down so hard and then kind of push into the sale, but it was like, it's not done right. And that's something you can kind of expect to have a bad review on, if not a cancellation, if you're not doing it right then and there. So what I've started designing, and it's kind of still a rough draft process, but it's a version of what I did in a truck, which the first place to start is to definitely first place to start is to affirm, if not even compliment, the third party. Now I'm gonna appreciate what he's trying to do or she's trying to do, right? So thank you for this. But there's a big but coming. And that being this person's butting into something they don't really know about. And it really always has irked me when I was in the situation when they would come in like this higher power that knows what I do for a living and has all this information that nobody else has. It literally they jumped into like a Cartman's triangle and made themselves the hero and me the aggressor and the client the victim. And I don't treat my clients like that. So it bothers me when that happens. So the way to start is say, sir, ma'am, I completely understand where you're coming from and wanting to protect your friend here. Now's the but. Let me ask you a real question. And I don't mean to sound sarcastic here, so excuse me if I come across that way. But if this thing stops working, or God forbid, manufacturer's defect happens and it dumps 40 gallons of water onto the floor, rolling into the kitchen, whatever, coming through the ceiling on a Sunday night at 1 a.m., are you going to load up your fully stocked plumbing truck and head over here and fix it? No, because you don't have a fully stocked plumbing truck. Will you contact a restoration company? Will you work with our insurance company, her insurance company, the manufacturer's insurance company, and make sure that this does not cost her a dime if it's not her fault, which clearly it's not? Right? Is that something you will do? Unlike most of our competitors who can't wait to never speak to her again after they make a sale, at least for a decade or so until it's time to replace this equipment again, we do all those things. You see, we are never more aggressive than when we have a warranty call on that board. This is where the managers hit the panic button. So this is our opportunity to shine and show where we stand out above all of our competitors, right? Most of our competitors, I'll say. So not only does she get the company's line and has someone to talk to 24/7, she doesn't get sent to a voicemail when she contacts the company line. There's somebody to talk to, but she also gets my cell phone number. Now, I don't know where everybody stands on that kind of thing in terms of owners and managers, but here and any place that I've been, I strongly encourage technicians to give out their cell phone numbers and say, don't call the office, call me. Right? And maybe you'll get me, maybe you won't. But when I get a voicemail, when I get a text messages, hey, feel free to text me. As soon as I see it, I take action. Right? Now, if you don't get a hold of me, sure, call the office line. But I'm saying always start with me and see if I can't get you taken care of. Now, if all she cares about is the absolute lowest price, like if this thing broke at 3 a.m. on a Sunday and it doesn't bother you or her that she could have a technician out here who's not been background checked in any way, shape, or form, does not get a drug test, walks in off the street from prison, from wherever, and walks right into a truck and then right into her home at night. If none of that matters and all she cares about is the cheapest price, there's no point in even having this conversation because we're not cheap. But if all those things do matter, and they matter to the point that they're worth a few extra dollars over the course of the 10, 15 years, whatever this product is meant to last, then we can keep talking. Should we proceed? And that's it. So the dismantling of that third party is affirm, make sure that they understand that you understand what they're trying to do. And all that's going to do is it's going to remove that defensive, like that wall between you and that person. They come in standing like this because they have the same anxiety we do. They're not actually trying to attack you, but they don't know how to come into the situation. So make it all right that they're there. And the second you affirm it and maybe even give them gratitude for being there, you feel differently. And that's way more important because it's our attitude that determines the outcome of a service call.